A shadow fell across Henry Mason, or Henry as his friends knew him. He stared at his phone, the silence of his wife Olivia's, or Liv's, as she insisted, voicemail ringing in his ears. A monumental victory had just been secured. A lucrative service contract with a sprawling California corporation, promising unprecedented growth for Alex Carter's IT firm, and a substantial boost to Henry's own salary. Perhaps, he mused, this was it. The moment to finally embark on the family they'd so deeply craved. By the way, please like and subscribe if you enjoy stories like this. Yet, a creeping dread had taken root in his soul since that seemingly idyllic camping trip with Liv and Alex just over a week ago. Her return had been marked by an unsettling shift, a distant gaze, a fragile temper, then the discovery that shattered his world. Among their laundry, nestled within Liv's intimate wear, a horrifying stain. Dried with a telltale odor, a primal wave of nausea washed over him. Whose fluid? The question ripped through his mind, tearing at the fabric of his existence. He vowed to unearth the vile truth. With a looming West Coast business trip, Henry sought counsel. Grace Bennett, a family law and divorce attorney, came highly recommended by a friend whose own marriage had dissolved amidst infidelity. "Are you certain your wife is cheating?" Grace probed, her voice a cool balm against Henry's raging storm. "Not completely, but I need to know," Henry confessed, his voice raw. "And if she is, I want a divorce." Grace nodded, her expression grave. "Most divorces in this state are no fault. You could file on grounds of adultery, but that requires irrefutable proof." "Like photos or videos?" Henry rasped, a bitter taste in his mouth. "Precisely," Grace affirmed. "If you wish, I can have an investigator monitor her, uncover the truth." "Please," Henry pleaded. "What should I expect in a divorce?" "Given her teaching salary is roughly equal to yours," Grace explained, "alimony is unlikely. With no real estate or children, assets will be split equally, your retirement savings hers. A fair division, essentially. However, if we prove infidelity, that evidence will secure a more favorable outcome for you. I'll begin the paperwork now, and we'll proceed once we have the evidence." "Agreed," Henry said, a steely resolve hardening his gaze. "I'll be gone for about 3 days. It seems like the perfect window for her to do something." Grace wasted no time contacting her investigator, Ethan Wright. Ethan suggested a tracking app for Liv's phone, along with a device to record landline calls and a miniature audio recorder for her purse. Henry loathed the invasiveness, but the gnawing need for truth propelled him forward. Other insidious signs had also emerged. Alex, since the camping trip, had become insufferably arrogant, condescending almost, as if privy to a dark secret Henry couldn't fathom. Henry endured the agonizing week until Liv drove him to the airport. A perfunctory kiss, a promise to call after dinner, then he was gone. That night, his promise call to Liv was met with a startling revelation. She was waitressing at a party at Alex's house, a last-minute fill-in for a sick colleague, she claimed, with Alex promising $150. Henry knew nothing of this party. Alex hadn't mentioned a word. Though she could use the extra cash, something felt profoundly wrong. "Really?" he pressed, a tremor in his voice. "All right, go ahead, but be careful. Let me know how it goes tomorrow." "Okay," she replied, her voice soft. "You know I love you, right?" "Yeah," he managed, "and I love you too. Good night." The line went dead, leaving a cold knot in his stomach. He immediately contacted Ethan. "Just wanted to let you know Liv's been asked to work as a waitress for a party at Alex Carter's house," Henry disclosed, the words tasting like ash. "Got it," Ethan responded, his voice calm. "We'll keep tabs on her and forward whatever we find." "Thanks," Henry muttered, ending the call. The next day, Henry's calls to Liv's cell went unanswered. The house phone rang hollowly, met only by the answering machine. A chilling thought took root. Had she spent the night with Alex? His worst fears materialized that afternoon in an email from Ethan. Liv spent the night at Carter's house and is still there. The email read, the words a hammer blow. She was quite busy last night. I've attached a few photos, but be warned they're quite graphic. I'll provide a full report when you return. Henry's trembling fingers opened the attachments. His world imploded. There she was, the woman he had loved, entangled in grotesque acts with Alex and two other men he had once considered friends. The second photo depicted her splayed on the floor, his hands shaking, tears blurring his vision as he struggled to comprehend the horror. He tried her phone one last time, only to be shunted to voicemail. The house phone offered no solace. Without a word, he sought refuge in the hotel bar, drowning his sorrows in a torrent of bitterness. The next morning, the tracker on Liv's phone confirmed she was still at Alex's. Ethan's subsequent email, accompanied by two more horrifying photos, obliterated any lingering doubt. Liv, caught in a gangbang with multiple men, including Alex, his son Chris, and several others from Alex's firm. Men Henry had once trusted, now revealed as depraved betrayers. The other three faces were unknown, presumably Chris's friends. Henry, his business with the California client concluded and contract secured, checked out of his hotel and boarded an early flight home. Liv's car was absent from their driveway. The tracker confirmed his sickening suspicion. Her phone remained at Alex's. Inside, he changed clothes, then called Grace's office. To his surprise, she was available immediately. He called Liv's cell, a jolt of shock at her breathless voice. "Hello?" "Hey, it's me, Henry," he said, his voice flat. "Where are you?" "I'm at home, just catching up on a few things before classes start," she lied, her casual deception a dagger to his heart. "I see," he replied, his voice devoid of emotion. "Well, I'm done here in California and heading home." "Oh, good," she chirped. "I've missed you so much. Call me when you land and I'll pick you up at the airport." "No need to bother," he retorted. "I'll take a taxi or something. Bye." He ended the call, a grim satisfaction in the omission of "I love you," or any mention of seeing her later. He shook his head, left the house, and headed for Grace's office. Meanwhile, Liv stared at her phone. Henry's customary "I love you" had been conspicuously absent. His tone had been cold, distant. She had intended to return home after that first night, but being sandwiched naked between Alex and his son had felt too good to leave. She rationalized it. She deserved this, and it would cease once classes resumed. Henry would never discover her secret. So she had remained for another day and night with Alex and Chris. Alex even left for work for a few hours on the second day, but Chris kept her thoroughly occupied, even arranging for his friends to join them for another gangbang. When Alex returned, he found Liv astride Chris on his bed. He joined them. Afterwards, Alex looked at her, a wicked grin twisting his lips. "Maybe I should send your husband away more often," he purred. "You know I have classes starting soon," Liv said, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "I won't be available during the week. I can't do this while he's home." "Why not?" Alex countered, a mocking glint in his eye. "Maybe he'd get off on watching you with real men for a change." Both Alex and Chris roared with laughter. "Well, I have to admit I've gotten hooked on you," Liv confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "But I still love Henry and don't want to hurt him." "Maybe I can arrange for him to be out on weekends," Alex suggested, a predatory gleam in his eye. "That way you can come over and play house with us." "That sounds like fun," Liv mused, "but he's going to find out eventually. Henry's not stupid." "Don't worry," Alex said, picking up his camera. "I'll handle Timmy boy. Just one thing." "What's that?" she asked, her voice faltering. I don't want you having sex with him anymore, Alex declared. You belong to us now. Got it? But how do I do that? Liv asked, a tremor in her voice. You'll figure something out, Alex said, a dismissive wave of his hand. Make up an excuse like a headache or something. Okay, I'll try, Liv conceded, her defiance crumbling. None of them noticed the service van parked across the street, or the mini-cams discreetly attached to the windows, recording every illicit act. Henry was utterly devastated by the evidence Ethan had amassed. Alongside the photos, 2 SD cards brimmed with videos of his wife engaged in acts he'd never imagined, things she had never done with him. His love, once fierce, had disintegrated in the face of such debauchery. Grace offered what comfort she could, but the situation felt hopelessly bleak. 5 years, he thought. How could she have transformed into such a monster? What had he done to deserve this? And Alex, once a trusted friend, had become the ultimate betrayer. I'll draft the divorce papers citing adultery, Grace stated. If you wish, I can also file for alienation of affection against Alex and the other men. Those lawsuits usually don't go far, but we might secure a decent settlement. Do what you have to do, Henry said, his voice flat. Just don't do anything reckless. Don't worry, Grace assured him. I don't want to bail you out of jail. Henry shook his head. I won't do anything stupid. When can you have the papers ready? I can have everything prepared in a couple of days, Grace replied. In the meantime, try to act normally around your wife. I'm not a great actor, Henry confessed, a bitter laugh escaping him. And there's no way I'm touching her again. Who knows what she's picked up from all those men? Tell her you're not feeling well, Grace suggested, a pragmatic solution. That should buy you some time. Yeah, okay, Henry agreed, rising to leave. Sitting in his car, a sudden stark realization hit him. He couldn't work for Alex anymore. He couldn't endure the presence of the men who had shattered his world. He pulled out his phone, found the number, and dialed. Thompson, a voice answered. David, this is Henry Mason, Henry stated. Henry, how are you, old friend? David Thompson, an executive at Empire, replied, his voice laced with warmth. Could be better, Henry admitted. Listen, is that position with Empire still available? Of course it is, David exclaimed. You finally decided to join an established company? Yeah, something like that, Henry said, the words carefully chosen. Some things have come to light and I can no longer work where I am. I'm sorry to hear that, David offered, his concern genuine. Is there anything I can do? Just give me a job, Henry pleaded. I promise I'll put in the same effort for you as I did for Alex. Of course, David replied without hesitation. How does starting on Monday sound? Monday works for me, Henry affirmed, a flicker of hope igniting within him. Perfect, David said. Why don't you and your lovely wife come by tonight? Emily is making her famous lasagna. We can catch up and I'll go over the details of the compensation package. I'd love to, but Liv won't be able to make it, Henry said, his voice carefully neutral. Oh, what's going on? David asked, sensing the underlying tension. I'd rather not get into it over the phone, Henry explained. I can fill you in a bit more when we meet. Understood, David said, his tone empathetic. You know, Emily is a licensed counselor. If you're up for it, she might be able to offer some guidance. That sounds like a good idea, David. Thanks, Henry said, a sliver of relief washing over him. Great, David concluded. I'll give Emily a heads up. How about 6:30 tonight? 6:30 is perfect, Henry agreed. Thanks again. Anytime, David replied as they ended the call. Henry felt a burden lift as he drove home. Upon arriving, Liv's car was still missing. He grabbed his briefcase, went inside, took a quick shower, changed, and sat down to draft his resignation letter. Liv arrived around 5 p.m., finding Henry at his computer. She approached him for a kiss, but he subtly turned his head, her lips landing on his cheek instead. "Is everything okay?" she asked, puzzled. "Not really," Henry said, his voice flat. "I'm not feeling great. Probably jet lag or something. I'll crash on the futon tonight." "Crash on the futon?" she echoed, a hint of confusion in her tone. "Where are you going?" "I have a dinner meeting," he replied, keeping his gaze fixed on the screen. "Are you meeting someone special?" she asked, a subtle hint of concern in her voice. "Do you mean am I cheating on you?" Henry retorted, his voice chillingly cold. "I've never cheated on you and I have no plans to. Can you say the same?" She recoiled, her face paling. Does he know? She wondered, a surge of panic rising within her. "No way," she said aloud, her voice trembling. Henry remained skeptical. "How was your job at Alex's house?" he asked, a subtle probe. "It went well," she replied, her voice too bright. "It was a lot of fun, even if it was a bit challenging." "I'm sure," Henry said, his voice devoid of emotion. He glanced at his watch. "I should get going." He shut down his computer and stood, walking past Liv without another word, heading to the master bedroom to change into something more formal. When he emerged, Liv was sitting on the couch. "How long will you be gone?" she asked, her voice small. "I'm not sure," Henry said. "Don't wait up for me. Bye." He grabbed his keys and left. Liv noticed he didn't kiss her goodbye or say, "I love you," both unusual omissions. After he drove off, she picked up her phone and called Alex, unaware that the call was being recorded. "Alex, I think Henry knows something," she said, her voice trembling. "Really? What makes you think that?" Alex asked, his tone too casual. "He wouldn't touch me," she whispered. "He was so cold and distant. He didn't even kiss me goodbye or say, 'I love you.' He just left, saying he had a dinner meeting." "Interesting," Alex mused. "Did he mention who he was meeting?" "No," she said, her voice rising in panic. "Alex, what if he knows? What if he's planning to leave me?" "So what if he does?" Alex sneered, a cruel edge to his voice. "You can always come stay with us. And don't worry about Henry. I'll keep him so busy you won't have time to notice anything." "But I don't want to lose him," Liv said, her voice cracking. "I still love him." Alex laughed, a harsh, derisive sound. "Yeah, you've shown just how much you love him these past couple of days," he said sarcastically. "That's not funny, Alex," she retorted, tears welling in her eyes. "I enjoyed what happened, but I still love him. I don't want to lose him." "Right," Alex said dismissively. "Let him get it out of his system. He'll come around eventually. If not, we'll deal with that." "You're not going to hurt him, are you?" Liv asked, fear creeping into her voice. "Not directly," Alex said, a chilling smile in his voice. "But we'll make sure he understands how things are going to be from now on. You'll help with that." "What do you mean?" Liv asked, shocked. "When the time comes," Alex said, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper, "you'll help us explain things to him. Remember who you belong to now. I've got evidence of what you've done, and it's in your best interest to keep Henry in line." "You wouldn't dare," Liv challenged, her voice trembling. "Oh, I would," Alex scoffed. "I have videos from the camping trip and other compromising footage. You're practically mine now, so it's up to you to keep Henry under control." Feeling trapped, Liv gave in. "Okay, Alex, but please don't hurt him." Alex sneered. Yeah, we'll see," he said, ending the call. Henry arrived at the Thompsons' impressive two-story home, greeted by David, who took the bottle of wine with a warm smile. "Thanks for bringing this, Henry. Come on in." David led Henry to the dining room where Emily, David's wife, awaited with her legendary lasagna. "Henry, this is my wife Emily," David said. "Emily, meet Henry Mason, our new account rep." Henry shook Emily's hand. "Nice to meet you, Emily." "Likewise, Henry," Emily said warmly. "Please call me Emily." They sat down and Emily served the lasagna as David poured the wine. Henry took a bite, his eyes widening in surprise. This is the best lasagna I've ever had," he declared. "I'm glad you like it," Emily said, smiling. "It's one of my favorites to make." "So, Henry," David began, his voice softening, "I'm curious why you decided to leave Alex so suddenly. Did something happen?" Henry took a deep breath. "Yeah, something happened," he admitted, the words heavy on his tongue. "Please tell us about it," Emily encouraged, her gaze compassionate. Henry recounted his harrowing tale. David's expression grew somber. "Damn, that's brutal. I'm really sorry," he said. "I had something similar happen, though the circumstances were different. So what's next for you, aside from changing jobs?" "I've already seen a lawyer and I'm filing for divorce," Henry said, his voice flat. "My attorney says it'll be a pretty even split." "What about counseling?" Emily asked gently. "Have you thought about it?" "At this point, it feels too late," Henry confessed. "I don't understand what happened to Liv. It's like she flipped a switch and turned into someone else overnight. I never knew she had it in her to be like this." "How are you coping?" Emily asked sympathetically. "Not great," Henry admitted. "My lawyer says I should try to act normal around Liv, but it's tough right now. I can barely stand to be near her." "You might want to consider counseling," Emily suggested softly. "I might," Henry said, a flicker of hesitation in his voice. "I'll think about it." "Emily is excellent at what she does," David interjected, his voice firm. "I really think she could help you. Plus, it's covered by your benefits." "That's a plus," Henry said with a small, wry laugh. "But I'm serious," David continued. "Emily helped me through a tough time before. I know she can help you too." He turned to Emily. "Can you fit Henry into your schedule?" "Of course," Emily said, her smile warm. "I think an hour a week would work. What do you think, Henry?" Henry considered it for a moment. "Okay, I'll give it a try," he conceded. David smiled, giving Henry a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "Good choice. I'll make sure you get the time you need for counseling. Work it out with Emily and let me know if you need anything else." "Thanks," Henry said. "I will." "Now, if you don't mind," David said, gesturing toward his office, "Henry and I need to discuss your new job." "Not at all," Emily said with a smile. "I'm looking forward to working with you too, Henry." "Thank you," Henry said as he followed David to the office. They spent the next 2 hours discussing his new role and the transition. By the time they finished, Henry felt like he was slowly regaining control over his life. After shaking David's hand, Henry headed back home. It was around 10 p.m. when he pulled into his driveway. Lights glowed from the apartment, and he hoped Liv was alone. He went inside to find her on the couch. "So, how did your meeting go?" she asked. "It went well," Henry said curtly. "I'm heading to bed now. Good night." He went into the second bedroom where his computer was set up and began to undress. Liv followed him to the door. "Are you sleeping in here now?" she asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "Yes," Henry said. "I'm still not feeling well, so I'll take the futon. Is that a problem?" "Oh no," she said, her tone a bit disappointed. "I was hoping we could, spend some time together. You've been gone for 3 days." "I'm not up for it tonight," Henry said, the thought of physical intimacy with her making his skin crawl. "Maybe tomorrow. We'll see." Liv nodded, a puzzled expression on her face, and left. As Henry began his night routine, the feeling of betrayal clung to him like a shroud. The next morning, he rose before Liv, grabbed his resignation letter, and made a cup of coffee. He saw Liv's purse on the kitchen counter and seized the opportunity to retrieve the audio recorder. He downloaded the recording from the previous day's phone call before heading out, leaving without a word. Liv heard the door close and lay in bed, tears streaming down her face. At the office, Henry barely interacted with anyone. He greeted his secretary, then retreated to his office, shutting the door behind him. He was packing his things when Alex walked in. "What's this?" Alex asked, seeing the packed boxes, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Henry pulled out 2 envelopes from his briefcase. "One is the signed contract from California," he said, his voice cold and steady. "The other is my resignation, effective immediately. I expect my bonus and final pay, including unused vacation time." "Resignation?" Alex spluttered, clearly shocked. "What the hell? Why are you leaving? I need you." "Seriously," Henry scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping him. "You really don't know? You think I'm oblivious or something? I found out some things and decided I can't work here anymore. I've accepted another position. I'll be out of your hair in a few minutes, then I'm going to HR for—" "Wait, Henry!" Alex interrupted, trying to salvage the situation. "Can't we talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about," Henry said firmly. "I'm done. I thought of you as a friend, but you betrayed me and wrecked my marriage. Find someone else to manipulate." "So this is what it's about," Alex said, a smirk spreading across his face. "Your wife was more than willing. Don't let this ruin your career. Just go with the flow for a while. She'll come back to you once she's had her fun." "Are you seriously suggesting I just accept this?" Henry said, disgusted. "How long have you been sleeping with her?" "The first time was at the campout," Alex said, grinning, reveling in Henry's pain. "The day you and the others were out skiing. She came onto me in your tent, told me I was bigger than you and begged me to take her. That's about the time you suddenly had me leave for office business, right?" Henry snarled. "You wanted me out of the way so you could have your way with her." Alex's smirk widened. "Yeah, so what?" "And the waitress gig at your party was just a cover to get her into bed, wasn't it?" Henry pressed, his voice dangerously low. "Yeah, it was," Alex admitted, a triumphant glint in his eyes. "What of it?" Henry pulled out his phone and stopped the audio recording that had been running since earlier. "Thanks for confirming everything," Henry said coldly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm finished here. I'll head to HR and then be out of your life for good." He grabbed his things. "Wait a minute," Alex said, trying to stop him. "You can't use that recording." "We'll see," Henry replied, his voice devoid of emotion. "I'm done here. Goodbye, Alex. Rotten hell." Alex sneered. "Okay, Henry," he said. "You forgot something." He turned to grab a photo of Liv from his desk. "I didn't forget," Henry said, holding up the picture of Liv. "I don't want it. You and your son clearly wanted her so badly you can keep her. I'm done with both of you." With that, Henry stormed out of the office. Alex watched him leave, utterly baffled. How had Henry unearthed the truth about Liv? He replayed the scene in his mind. Wait, he resigned? Liv's voice crackled through the phone, laced with disbelief. "Yeah," Alex confirmed, the words heavy. "He shoved a signed contract and his resignation letter into my hands, then just walked out. He knows Liv. I don't know how, but he knows everything." "What did you tell him?" Liv's voice trembled, a fragile whisper. "The truth," Alex confessed. "I told him about the camping trip." "You idiot!" Liv shrieked, the exclamation a raw, guttural cry. "Why would you ever tell him that?" "Well," he asked. Alex retorted defensively, his voice rising. "He also left that picture of you on his desk, said he didn't want it." "Great," Liv sobbed, tears carving hot paths down her face. "So what now?" "Not my problem," Alex dismissed, a callous edge to his tone. "He's your husband. You handle it. Unless you want me to come over and, I don't know, persuade him otherwise." No! Liv's voice cracked, a desperate plea. You've done enough. Stay out of this. I'll deal with it. Whatever, Alex muttered, hanging up. Liv stared at her phone, the cold glass a mirror to her despair. She didn't want a divorce, but the icy certainty of Henry's unforgiveness regarding her infidelity settled deep within her. Determined to salvage the wreckage of her marriage, she collapsed onto the couch, her head buried in her hands, her sobs echoing in the silence. Minutes later, Henry's car crunched onto the driveway. He spotted Liv's vehicle, then scanned for Alex's, his gaze sharp, assessing. Seeing no trace of his rival, Henry grabbed his box and briefcase and entered the house. He found Liv on the couch, a crumpled figure, but offered no acknowledgement. Instead, he strode directly to his office, locked the door, and began his grim task. He meticulously reviewed the voice recording, his fingers flying until he found the damning evidence. Liv's call with Alex. He forwarded it to his lawyer, then dialed her number. Hello, Henry. Her voice, calm and professional, greeted him. I just got your email. I'm filing the paperwork now. Excellent, Henry replied, a cold satisfaction in his tone. When can they be served? If you'd like, she offered. I can have my process server deliver them this afternoon. Would that work? Yes, that's fine, Henry affirmed. Thanks. He ended the call, then walked to his gun safe. He retrieved his old .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol and placed it on the kitchen table. He had no intention of using it, not yet, but he wanted to be prepared for any trouble, any unwelcome intrusions. Henry walked into the kitchen, his briefcase thudding onto the table. Liv looked up, her eyes swollen and red-rimmed from weeping. We need to talk, Henry stated, his gaze flicking to the weapon. Is that really necessary? She asked, her voice a fragile tremor as she glanced at the pistol. I hope not, Henry replied, his voice devoid of emotion. I just want to be cautious in case your lover decides to drop by. My lover? Liv asked, her brow furrowed in feigned confusion. Don't play dumb with me. Henry's tone was a glacial slice. I'm not in the mood for games. Sit down. We need to go over some things. Liv sank onto the chair, her fear a palpable presence. First off, Henry began, his voice flat, resolute. Later today, someone will come by to serve you with divorce papers. Liv's face drained of all color. Divorce? Why? I don't want that. I love you. Spare me, Henry scoffed. I know all about your escapades with Alex and his son and the other men. I've filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery. Adultery? She gasped, feigning shock. You don't have proof. Henry smirked, a chilling expression. He pulled out an envelope and let a few time-stamped photographs flutter onto the table, each one a damning indictment, showing her with different men, including Alex. I also have video and audio, he added, his voice chillingly calm. Want to see? Liv shook her head, utterly defeated. Good, Henry continued. Considering everything, I've been more than fair. No alimony. You get half of what's in the bank. We each keep our retirement accounts, and you can keep all your personal belongings. I've already canceled your credit card and have a cashier's check for your share of the remaining funds. Plus, there's a restraining order requiring you to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. You have until you're served to pack up your things. You're kicking me out? Liv's voice was a broken whisper. Basically, Henry confirmed. But what if I fight the divorce? She asked, a desperate flicker in her eyes. Henry laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. I wouldn't recommend it. Think about what would happen if these photos and videos got out. Do you think the school board would want someone like you teaching their kids? I know I wouldn't. You wouldn't dare, she said, her voice trembling. Do you want to take that chance? Henry asked, his tone cutting. Liv looked down, unable to meet his unyielding gaze. No, she finally conceded. I don't want to lose my job. Right, Henry said. And there are a couple more things. You'll need to return your rings and give up my surname. Oh, God, she whispered, pulling off her rings, her hands shaking. You've turned into a heartless bastard. Yeah, Henry said, a sardonic edge to his voice. I guess I have. But I need to know one thing. What made you go from being a loving, faithful wife to someone who sleeps with anyone? Liv looked away, shame burning her cheeks. It all started on the second day of the camping trip. You were out on the boat and I was in the tent. Alex came by. I was naked, trying to rest. He came in, seemed embarrassed at first, but then saw a guy with a bigger... Henry cut in, his voice thick with disgust. And that was all it took for you to become a cheater? How many times did you sleep with him during that trip? Twice, Liv admitted. Once when you were water skiing, and again when Alex sent you back to the office. Henry shook his head, staring at the photos. None of your lovers used protection, he asked, a chilling realization dawning on him. Weren't you worried about pregnancy or STDs? I'm still on the pill, Liv said, her voice small. That doesn't guarantee anything, Henry countered, his voice rising. And you can still get diseases. Was that your plan? To ruin both our lives? Oh, God, no, Liv exclaimed, horrified. Henry merely shook his head. Disappointment and disillusionment etched onto his face. You know, Henry began, his voice low, filled with a raw intensity. Throughout our entire relationship, I've been hit on by women who look like goddesses compared to you. I turned them all down. You know why? Because I thought I had a loving and faithful wife at home. I would never do anything to hurt her. But you didn't even think about how your actions would affect me. All you wanted was a big dick, or 10. I hope it was worth it. Henry's gaze was hard, more resolute than Liv had ever seen. Get your stuff packed. I expect you to be gone when you're served. Henry, please, she began, her voice trembling, pleading. Can't we get some counseling? I'll never do it again, I promise. Can't you forgive me this time? I will never forgive you, Henry said, his expression colder than she had ever seen him. From the moment Alex dropped his pants, you were willing, and I can't forgive that level of betrayal. But don't you love me enough to get past this? Liv asked, desperation glinting in her eyes. Henry shook his head. No. Right now, I can't even stand to look at you. The sooner you're out of my life, the better. Now go start packing. Whatever you leave behind will be either burned, thrown out, or given to goodwill. Sobbing, Liv stood up and stumbled into the master bedroom to pack. Henry watched as she dragged out trash bag after trash bag. She stopped once and looked at him. Can you at least help me get this in my car? Nope, Henry said, his voice flat. You're trash. You deal with it. And remember, whatever you leave behind will be burned or tossed, including pictures and your wedding dress. You'd burn my wedding dress? Liv gasped, shocked. My parents paid thousands for that. Well, Henry said, his gaze unwavering, you'd better take it if you don't want it burned. Tears streaming down her face, Liv carried the bag out to her car and returned for another. Henry couldn't help but think, how much stuff does she have? A couple of hours later, Liv sat down, exhausted. I can't fit anything else in the car. Can I come back later for the rest? No, Henry said. You won't be allowed within 500 feet of this place. Ask your parents to come by for it if you want. I'll hold off on throwing anything out for a few days. Thank you, Henry. I appreciate that, Liv said. Oh my God, she suddenly realized, a fresh wave of panic washing over her. What will I tell my parents? Try telling them the truth for once, Henry suggested, his voice devoid of sympathy. Tell them you cheated on me with my boss and others, and that's why I kicked you out. Seriously? She asked. They'll disown me. Not my problem, Henry said, his voice hard. But it'll be worse if you try to paint me as the bad guy or sugarcoat the situation. You know how your parents feel about lying. Just then, a sharp knock echoed at the door. I think that's for you, Henry said. Liv opened the door to find a sheriff's deputy. Olivia Mason, he asked. She nodded. That's me. Do you have some ID? The deputy asked. Liv showed him her driver's license. After inspecting it, he handed it back along with an envelope. You've been served, ma'am. There's also a restraining order requiring you to vacate the premises immediately. You can sign the divorce papers now if you wish. Liv took the paperwork, her hands trembling, reviewed it, and signed it. I'll get this back to the attorney, the deputy said. You need to leave now. If you try to come back, you'll be arrested. Do you understand? Yes, she said, tears falling freely. She looked back at Henry, a profound sorrow in her eyes. I'm so sorry. Yeah, me too, Henry said, his voice flat. Goodbye. Goodbye, she said quietly, then turned and walked out. The deputy nodded at Henry before departing. Over the next few days, Henry's life was a whirlwind. Liv didn't contact him, but Alex called twice, leaving venomous, threatening messages. God damn it, Henry! Alex's voice raged over the voicemail. I know you're there. If you don't drop this lawsuit, I'm coming over to kick your ass. Henry merely smiled and forwarded the voicemail to Grace, who promptly alerted the local sheriff's department. Liv's parents called, asking if they could come by to collect the rest of her things. Sure, Henry said. Just make sure she's not with you. There's a restraining order on her. Okay, Charles, Liv's father, sighed. We'll come by then. When Charles and Liv's mother, Margaret, arrived, they packed up the remaining items, their faces etched with a mixture of sadness and confusion. Henry, Margaret began, her voice gentle, pleading. She made a mistake. Surely you can move past this and take her back. She's crazy about you. What did she tell you? Henry asked, his voice even. She said she messed up with your boss, Margaret replied, her eyes searching his. Is that so? Henry asked, pulling out the envelope with the photos and SD cards. He showed them to Charles and Margaret. Their faces went pale, then ashen as they saw the explicit images. I'm sorry she didn't tell you the whole truth, Henry said. As you can see, it was much worse than she let on. Oh my God, Margaret whispered, horrified. I had no idea it was this bad. I'm so sorry, Henry. I don't blame you for what you did. Charles's face was a mask of anger. I'm going to have a long talk with our daughter, he vowed. Have you done anything else with these photos? Not yet, Henry said, but I warned her not to fight the divorce. They commiserated for a bit longer before finishing up the packing. Half an hour later, they left, giving Henry a heartfelt hug and wishing him well. Later that day, as Henry was watching television, another knock echoed through the house. Peering through the peephole, he saw Alex, Chris, and two of Henry's former work colleagues. Henry quickly went to his office, grabbed his pistol from the gun case, and dialed 911. Holding the gun behind his back, he barely got the door open before they barged in. We're going to kick your ass, Alex growled, his eyes alight with malicious intent. Henry pulled out his pistol, aiming it directly at Alex, which made the group falter, their bravado deflating. You're not really going to shoot us, are you? Alex taunted, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. You don't have the balls. Do you really want to test that? Henry replied, his voice chillingly calm. Just so you know, I've already called 911. The police are on their way. If you're still here when they arrive, you'll be arrested for violating the restraining order. Alex, I think he means it, one of the other men stammered. Glancing nervously at the flashing police lights through the window, Alex looked at him, then turned back to Henry, a new unease settling over his features. Just then, the sound of sirens grew louder and red and blue lights pulsed outside. Yeah, Alex, Henry said, his voice now a quiet, dangerous whisper. I mean it. They turned to leave, but before they could, two large uniformed police officers were at the door. Henry lowered his pistol. Put the gun down, sir, one of the officers instructed. Henry complied, setting the pistol on the kitchen counter. Sir, these men are violating a restraining order, Henry stated, his voice firm. They barged into my apartment and threatened me. I want them arrested. Do you have a copy of the order? The other officer asked. Henry nodded. I do, officer. He retrieved the envelope from the counter and handed it to the officer to review. After a few moments, the officer returned the order to Henry and addressed the four men. Turn around, hands behind your back, he ordered. The men glared at Henry as the officer cuffed them and read them their rights. Once they were restrained, one of the officers asked Henry, Do you have a license for that firearm? Yes, I do, Henry said, pulling out his wallet to show the officer his firearm license and NRA training card. The officer examined them and nodded. All right, he said. Be careful with that thing, you hear me? I hear you, officer, Henry replied. Thanks. The next 3 months were a blur for Henry. He thrived at Empire, finding the work far more satisfying than his previous job with Alex. Weekly counseling with Emily helped him address his lingering trust and anger issues. He also joined a gym, dedicating 3 days a week to working out, and began martial arts classes seeking mental discipline. Additionally, he took a course on diet and exercise, as recommended by Emily. The divorce went through smoothly, especially since Liv didn't contest it. The alienation of affection lawsuits, however, were more complicated. Grace had warned that some might be dismissed, and 2 were, but the case against Alex took an unexpected turn. After meticulously reviewing the evidence and Alex's financial disclosures, the judge ruled decisively in Henry's favor, ordering Alex to pay $1 million in restitution. The judge had little sympathy for Alex. Mr. Carter, he declared, his voice firm and unwavering, your behavior in this matter is beyond reprehensible. You abused your position as Henry's employer to deliberately destroy his marriage and his family. I also noticed that you repeatedly violated the restraining order. Therefore, I find in favor of the plaintiff and order you to pay restitution in the amount of $1 million. Your Honor, this is highly irregular, Alex's lawyer protested, springing to his feet. Mr. Winthrop, the judge responded, his gaze piercing. This court finds Mr. Carter's behavior not only irregular but absolutely despicable. The order stands. When is this restitution due? Winthrop asked, his voice strained. Immediately, the judge replied, his tone brooking no argument. Unless your client would prefer to spend some time in jail for contempt? No, Your Honor, my client will pay as ordered, Winthrop said, defeated, sinking back into his seat. Good, the judge stated, and may God help you if this check bounces. He banged the gavel, ending the hearing. Alex, a grim mask on his face, wrote a check and handed it to his attorney, who passed it to the bailiff. After the judge noted the check, the bailiff gave it to Grace, who then handed it to Henry. To Henry's surprise, the check cleared, and he promptly paid Grace her share of the judgment. While working at Empire, Henry was contacted by several of Alex's former clients. Word of the lawsuit had spread, and many businesses were reluctant to continue dealings with someone who had deliberately sought to ruin another man's marriage. Henry suspected that Alex's business would be in serious trouble within a year. During this time, Henry avoided dating, despite being approached by several attractive women at work. He wanted to wait until his final decree was official before pursuing any new relationships. When the final decree arrived, Henry celebrated with friends from work. Part of the celebration included a rather enthusiastic lap dance from a very well-endowed stripper. A couple of months after the final decree, Henry received a phone call from Liv's mother. Henry, this is Margaret. Do you have a few minutes? She asked. her voice tinged with an unusual urgency. Sure, Margaret, Henry said, a sense of unease settling over him. What's going on? It's Liv, she said, her voice breaking. She's HIV positive. She just got the test results. I'm sorry to hear that, Margaret, Henry replied, though a cold certainty settled within him. But to be honest, I'm not surprised. Besides, we're officially divorced now, so there's nothing I can do. She's not on my insurance, and I'm not responsible for her. I know, Margaret said, a faint desperation in her voice. I was just hoping you might consider talking to her for a little while. Well, I guess I can, Henry said, though he wondered at the futility of it. But I'm not sure what good it'll do. Please just come over and talk to her, Margaret pleaded. Henry thought for a moment before responding. All right, he conceded. I'll come by for a few minutes. Thanks so much, Margaret replied, relief flooding her voice. Henry drove over to Margaret and Charles's house. He was taken aback by how frail and thin Liv had become. As she approached him, he instinctively waved her off, and she, visibly disappointed, settled into a chair and gestured for him to sit on the couch. You look well, Henry, she remarked, her voice weak. Better than I remember. How have you been? Good, Liv, he responded, his voice neutral. New job, new friends, and a fresh outlook on life. How about you? Not well at all, she admitted. You know I'm HIV positive. That's what your mother told me, he replied. I'm sorry to hear that, but honestly, I'm not surprised. Do you know when you got infected? I think it was one of the days I was at Alex's, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I had unprotected sex with several men that day. Does Alex know? He asked. She shook her head. Not yet. I need to tell him so he can get tested, too. I'm sure he's not going to handle it well. Yeah, probably not, Henry agreed. Listen, Liv, I came here to hear your apology one last time. And I was hoping you could find it in yourself to forgive me for what I did to you, she began, her voice laced with raw remorse. I realize now that my actions have wrecked a lot of lives. I could have said no at any moment, but I didn't. I was foolish and selfish, letting my desires override my judgment, and now I'm paying the consequences. I had the best husband and lover I could ask for, and I threw it all away for a fleeting thrill. I know you have every right to hate me, but I don't want to die without your forgiveness. Henry took a moment to consider her words. For the first time, she was genuinely acknowledging her actions and their devastating impact on others. Sure, he could hold on to his resentment, but he remembered his sessions with Emily. Harboring a grudge wouldn't help him move on. He nodded. All right, Liv, I forgive you. She broke down in tears, a profound relief washing over her. Henry thought about comforting her with a hug and started to rise, but she motioned him to stay put. Thank you so much, Henry, she sobbed. That means more to me than you can imagine. I want you to find a woman who loves and trusts you, marry her and have children. I'm done here, but you still have your whole life ahead of you, and you deserve to be happy. Thank you, he said. I'll do that, and if you ever need to talk, just let me know, okay? She wiped her tears away and nodded weakly. I will, Henry. Thanks for coming over and talking with me. I've missed you so much these past few months. I've missed the woman I married, Henry said softly. How are things with Alex and Chris, by the way? She shook her head. Not well. Alex has become very abusive lately. He didn't handle losing to you in court very well, and his business has taken a serious hit. I've noticed, Henry said. Has he hurt you physically? Not yet, she said, but he's very abrupt. Do you want me to be with you when you tell him about your diagnosis? Henry offered. No, but thanks for asking, she replied. This is my responsibility and I need to deal with it. I keep thinking that if I had just told him to leave that first day on the camping trip, we might still be together. That's quite possible, Henry said, but I suspect it would have happened eventually. He'd been pursuing you for a while. I think you're right, she agreed. Listen, I'm really tired and need to rest before I head back. Thanks for coming over. It really means more to me than you know. You're welcome, Liv, he said. And remember, call me if you just want to talk or something, okay? She nodded weakly. I will. Goodbye, Henry, she added. Think of me every now and then, okay? He sensed a finality in her tone and worried she might be contemplating suicide. I will, he said, his voice gentle. Just don't do anything drastic, okay? Okay. She gave him a faint smile. I won't, she assured him. He stood up and walked toward the door. As he was about to leave, Margaret approached him and hugged him. Thank you, Henry, she said, tears in her eyes. This means more to her than you know, and it means a lot to me, too. You're welcome, Margaret, he replied. Keep an eye on her. I will, she promised. A couple of weeks later, Henry was on his couch eating dinner and watching the evening news when a report caught his attention. The bodies of a local businessman, his son, and a woman believed to be his lover were discovered earlier today, the news anchor announced, her voice grave. Police are investigating what they believe to be a double murder-suicide. Jacob Carter, president and founder of Carter Consulting, along with his son and an unidentified woman, were found dead, authorities reported. All three victims had gunshot wounds. Investigations are ongoing and further details will be released as they become available. Henry was stunned. He immediately called Margaret, who answered the phone, sobbing. Margaret, what's happening? He asked, his voice laced with dread. We just found out Liv's dead, she choked out. It looks like that bastard Alex shot her, then his own son and himself. Oh my God, Henry whispered. I saw the news report and was hoping it wasn't her. It's her, Margaret confirmed, her voice thick with grief. The police aren't entirely sure yet, but I'm pretty certain she told Alex about her HIV and he lost it. They're performing autopsies now. I'm really sorry, Margaret, Henry said, his heart heavy. I want you to know I never wished for this. I know, Henry, she said, her voice softening. Liv made her choices and paid the price. It's still hard to lose an only child. I'm just relieved you were able to make peace with her. I like to think she's in a better place now. Let me know if there's anything I can do, he offered. Thank you, Henry, she said. Liv's memorial service was held a few weeks later, and Henry took time off to support her parents. According to the autopsies, Alex and Chris were both found to be HIV positive, just like Liv. The police pieced together the harrowing sequence of events. Liv had told Alex about her diagnosis and suggested they all get tested. When Alex and Chris discovered they were also positive, Alex, in a fit of rage and despair, shot Liv in the head, then turned the gun on his son and finally ended his own life. Henry took a few days to grieve Liv's death, reflecting on the good years they had shared, the memories now tinged with a profound sadness. One day, out of the blue, he received a visit from Hannah Brooks, a colleague from his team. Hey, cowboy, she greeted him, her smile bright. Care to join us for happy hour tonight? You look like you could use some company. Henry hesitated for a moment. He almost declined the offer, but then reconsidered. What the heck, he said, a faint smile touching his lips. I could use some good company right now. Sure, I'll join you. Great, she said, her eyes sparkling. Come on down to the hitchin' post after work. See you there. I'll be there, he replied. Thanks for the invite. As Hannah walked away, Henry thought to himself about how life keeps moving forward, a relentless, indifferent current. Then, out of nowhere, he heard a familiar female voice echoing in his mind, clear as a bell. Go for it, big boy. She's got the hots for you. Startled, Henry glanced around but saw no one. A shiver ran down his spine. No, he thought, trying to shake it off. That can't be real. Or could it? Ladies and gentlemen, since you've listened to the end of this story, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which state you're watching from. Let's see what percentage of elite viewers make it to the end. And please kindly turn your attention to the screen after this message. There you'll find a full playlist of thrilling stories, a subscribe button for the channel, and our most captivating story. Click, enjoy, and thank you.